Have you ever noticed how the people who speak the least often command the most respect? There's a profound power in silence that the ancient Stoics understood deeply. In today's world filled with constant noise and endless chatter, the ability to harness the strength of silence has become more valuable than ever. Most people rush to fill every moment with words, explanations, and justifications, unknowingly draining their personal power with each unnecessary utterance. The Stoics knew something remarkable. Your silence is not emptiness, it's fullness. It's not weakness, it's the ultimate strength. When you learn to reclaim your power in silence, you don't just change how others perceive you, you transform your entire existence. You stop being reactive and become intentional. You stop seeking validation and start embodying authority. In this video, we're going to explore 12 transformative Stoic habits that will teach you how to command respect without saying a word, how to influence without manipulation, and how to build an unshakable presence that makes people naturally gravitate toward you. These aren't just philosophical concepts, they're practical tools that you can start implementing immediately to revolutionize your relationships, your career, and your personal power. The philosophers we'll draw wisdom from today, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, weren't armchair theorists. They lived through wars, slavery, political turmoil, and personal tragedies. Their teachings on silence and power weren't born from comfort, but forged in the fires of real adversity. What they discovered can change your life if you're willing to truly listen and apply. So if you're tired of feeling overlooked, underestimated, or disrespected, if you're ready to stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve your energy, and if you want to cultivate the kind of magnetic presence that makes others instinctively treat you with reverence, then stay with me. By the end of this journey, you'll understand how to weaponize your silence, not as avoidance, but as authority. Before we begin, I ask that you leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so you don't miss any new content. And if you're interested, at the end of the video, access our exclusive material in the pinned comment. Without further delay, let's transform your relationship with silence and power. Habit 1. Master the pause before you respond. How many times have you regretted words spoken in haste? How often have you weakened your position by responding too quickly, too emotionally, or too defensively? The first habit of reclaiming your power in silence is perhaps the most fundamental: mastering the pause before you respond. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we have the power to hold no opinion about a thing and not be disturbed in our soul. This simple yet profound insight reveals that between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space lies your power. Most people never access this space. They react automatically, controlled by their emotions, their ego, or their need to be right. Think about the last time someone criticized you or said something that triggered an emotional response. What happened? Most likely, words tumbled out of your mouth before you even consciously decided to speak. You defended yourself, explained yourself, justified yourself, and in doing so, you handed your power directly to the person who provoked you. The Stoics understood that the person who controls the pause controls the conversation and ultimately the relationship. When someone says something designed to provoke you and you respond with immediate silence, something remarkable happens. The power dynamic shifts instantly. Your silence forces them to sit with their own words, to reconsider, to wonder what you're thinking. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their intentions back at them. Practicing the pause doesn't mean you never respond. It means you respond with intention rather than reaction. It means you choose your battles. It means you recognize that not every provocation deserves your energy. This is not about being passive or weak. This is about being strategic and powerful. Start practicing this immediately. When someone asks you a challenging question, count to 3 before responding. When someone criticizes you, take a breath before defending yourself. When someone tries to draw you into drama, let the silence hang in the air. You'll be amazed at how this simple habit transforms your interactions and elevates your perceived status in every relationship. Habit 2. Refuse to justify your decisions to those who don't matter. One of the fastest ways to drain your power is by constantly explaining and justifying your decisions to people who have no stake in your life. Epictetus taught that we should never depend on the admiration of others for our sense of self-worth. Our choices should be made according to our own reasoning and values, not shaped by the need for external approval. Yet so many of us fall into the trap of over-explaining ourselves. Someone questions why you're changing careers, and you launch into a 15-minute explanation of all your reasons. Someone judges your lifestyle choices, and you feel compelled to defend every decision. Someone disapproves of your relationship, and you try to convince them why you're right. Here's the truth that will set you free. You owe no one an explanation for how you live your life. The people who truly respect you will trust your judgment without needing every detail. The people who demand justifications are often the ones who will never be satisfied anyway. They're not seeking understanding, they're seeking control. When you constantly justify yourself, you're unconsciously communicating that your decisions are up for debate, that your judgment is questionable, that you need approval to proceed. You're positioning yourself as someone who requires permission rather than someone who operates from personal authority. The Stoic approach is radically different. Make your decisions based on your values and reasoning. When challenged, a simple statement is sufficient. I've thought about it carefully, and this is what I've decided. No justification, no defensive explanation, no seeking approval, just calm certainty. This doesn't mean you can't discuss your thoughts with trusted advisors or people whose wisdom you value, but there's a world of difference between seeking counsel and seeking approval. One comes from strength, the other from weakness. Watch what happens when you stop justifying yourself to everyone. People will respect you more. They'll stop questioning your decisions because you've communicated through your silence that your choices aren't up for discussion. Your power multiplies when you stop giving it away through unnecessary explanations. Habit 3. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Seneca wrote that we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He also understood that people who constantly talk about what they're going to do rarely accomplish much, while those who work in silence and let their results speak often achieve the extraordinary. In today's world of social media and constant self-promotion, this habit might seem counterintuitive. Everyone is announcing their plans, documenting their journey, and seeking validation for things they haven't even accomplished yet. But the Stoics knew that there's tremendous power in working quietly and revealing your progress only through undeniable results. When you constantly talk about your goals, several things happen that undermine your power. First, you get a premature sense of accomplishment from people's reactions to your plans rather than your actual achievements. Your brain releases dopamine from the attention and praise, satisfying the reward mechanism that should be driving you to actually complete the work. Second, you open yourself up to doubt, criticism, and negativity from people who don't want to see you succeed. Not everyone in your life is cheering for your growth. Some people are comfortable with you staying exactly where you are, and when you announce big changes, their fear and insecurity get triggered, leading them to plant seeds of doubt in your mind. Third, you create accountability to external expectations rather than internal standards. You start performing for an audience rather than pursuing your authentic goals. Your motivation becomes about proving something to others rather than becoming who you're meant to be. The Stoic alternative is powerful. Shut up and work. Let people wonder what you're up to. Let them be surprised by your transformation. Let your improved health, your new business, your developed skills, your changed circumstances speak for themselves. Move in silence and let success make the noise. This habit builds genuine self-respect because you're proving things to yourself first. You're building real confidence through actual competence rather than borrowed confidence through external validation. You're developing the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing what you're capable of, regardless of whether anyone else ever notices. People respect action far more than intention. They respect results far more than promises. They respect transformation far more than explanations. When you reclaim your power in silence by letting your actions speak, you command a level of respect that words could never achieve. Habit 4. Observe more, react less. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the universe is change and that our life is what our thoughts make it. One of the most powerful expressions of Stoic wisdom is the recognition that most events in life are neutral. They become good or bad only through the meaning we assign them and the reactions we choose. Yet most people move through life in constant reaction mode, responding emotionally to every provocation, every slight, every challenge. They're like puppets whose strings are being pulled by external circumstances and other people's behavior. They have no center, no stability, no real power because they've handed control of their emotional state to the world around them. The habit of observing more and reacting less is about reclaiming that control. It's about developing the capacity to witness what's happening without immediately making it mean something about you. It's about creating psychological space between events and your response to them. When someone is rude to you, instead of immediately taking offense, observe. Notice their tone, their body language, their emotional state. Ask yourself what might be driving their behavior. Perhaps they're having a terrible day. Perhaps they're dealing with pain you know nothing about. Perhaps their rudeness has absolutely nothing to do with you. When you receive criticism, instead of immediately defending yourself, observe. Is there any truth in what's being said? Is this person offering valuable feedback? Or are they projecting their own insecurities? Can you extract something useful while dismissing the rest? When circumstances don't go your way, instead of immediately falling into frustration or despair, observe. What can you learn from this? What alternative paths are now revealed? How might this apparent setback actually be, redirecting you towards something better? This habit of observation creates a profound shift in your experience of life. You stop being tossed around by every wave. You develop an inner stability that others can feel. You become someone who responds thoughtfully rather than reacts emotionally. You become someone who can be trusted in crisis because you don't lose your center. Epictetus taught his students that it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. He understood that between any event and your reaction lies choice. And that choice is where your power resides. The more you practice observing before reacting, the more you access that choice and the more power you reclaim. Start practicing this today. When something triggers an emotional response, pause and observe. Notice the emotion without being controlled by it. Watch your thoughts without immediately believing them. Create that space, and in that space, discover your freedom. Habit 5. Embrace selective communication. The ancient Stoics understood that words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They recognized that most people talk too much and listen too little, that excessive speech often reveals insecurity rather than confidence, and that those who guard their words carefully wield more influence than those who speak freely. Selective communication is not about being antisocial or mysterious for its own sake. It's about recognizing that your words have more power when they're rare, more impact when they're intentional, and more value when they're earned. It's about understanding that silence is often the most powerful response, and that withholding your opinion is sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself. Think about the people in your life who command the most respect. Chances are they're not the ones who dominate every conversation with endless stories and opinions. They're the ones who listen carefully, speak sparingly, and when they do speak, everyone pays attention, because they know it will be worth hearing. Contrast this with the person who has a comment on everything, who fills every silence with chatter, who needs to be heard constantly. This person may seem engaged or enthusiastic, but they rarely command genuine respect. Their words have become devalued through overuse, like currency that's been printed in excess. Selective communication means asking yourself before you speak, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? If the answer to any of these questions is no, remain silent. You'll be amazed at how much unnecessary speech this simple filter eliminates. It means choosing quality over quantity in your conversations. Instead of filling the air with small talk and surface-level chatter, engage in fewer but deeper conversations. Ask meaningful questions. Listen with genuine interest. Speak only when you have something valuable to contribute. It means knowing when to exit conversations that don't serve you. Not every discussion deserves your participation. Not every debate needs your input. Not every provocation requires your response. The person who knows when to disengage holds more power than the person who must have the last word. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and much of that imagined suffering comes from words, both the ones we speak unnecessarily and the ones we absorb from others unnecessarily. By practicing selective communication, you protect your energy, preserve your power, and elevate your presence. When you do speak, make it count. Let your words carry weight because they're rare. Let people lean in to hear you because you've trained them that what you say matters. This is how you command respect without demanding it, how you influence without manipulation, how you lead without titles. Habit 6. Cultivate an unshakable inner world. Marcus Aurelius faced constant threats during his reign as Roman emperor. War, plague, betrayal, political intrigue. Yet he maintained his composure and wisdom through it all. His secret, an unshakable inner world that remained calm regardless of external chaos. He wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In our modern context, cultivating an unshakable inner world might be the most important habit for reclaiming your power in silence. Most people's emotional state is entirely dependent on external circumstances. They're happy when things go well and devastated when things go wrong. Their sense of self-worth fluctuates based on others' opinions. Their peace is constantly disturbed by events they cannot control. This is a recipe for powerlessness. When your inner world is completely dependent on your outer world, you've essentially handed the remote control of your life to anyone and anything outside yourself. You're at the mercy of circumstances, other people's moods, and the inherent unpredictability of life. The Stoic alternative is to build an inner fortress, a center of stability that remains constant regardless of what's happening around you. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions or that you don't care about outcomes. It means you've developed a core sense of self that isn't defined by those emotions or outcomes. Building this inner world requires several practices. First, develop a regular practice of self-reflection. Marcus Aurelius did this through his journaling. You might do it through meditation, contemplation, or simply setting aside time each day to check in with yourself. The practice itself matters less than the consistency of turning your attention inward and examining your thoughts, reactions, and values. Second, establish personal principles that guide your decisions regardless of external pressure. The Stoics called these principles virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. You might articulate your own core values and commit to living by them, even when it's difficult or unpopular. When you have clear principles, you're not swayed by every opinion or trend. You have an internal compass. Third, practice detachment from outcomes. This might be the most challenging aspect for modern people who are obsessed with goals and results. The Stoics understood that we can control our efforts, but not the outcomes. We can control our character, but not others' responses. We can control our intentions, but not the universe's. And timing. When you cultivate genuine detachment from outcomes, you free yourself from anxiety and disappointment. You show up fully, give your best effort, and then accept whatever results emerge without your sense of self rising or falling based on those results. This is true power. An unshakable inner world creates an unmistakable presence. People can sense when they're in the company of someone who isn't performing, who isn't seeking validation, who isn't rattled by chaos. This presence commands respect automatically. It draws people to you because in a world of instability, you represent groundedness. The beautiful paradox is that by focusing on your inner world and caring less about external validation, you actually gain more external respect and influence. By detaching from outcomes, you often achieve better outcomes. By building your inner fortress, you become more effective in the outer world. Start today. Commit to daily self-reflection. Clarify your core principles. Practice detachment from specific outcomes while maintaining commitment to your efforts. Build that inner world and watch how your outer world transforms. Habit 7. Disappear strategically. In a world where everyone is clamoring for attention, constantly available, and desperately trying to maintain their relevance through continuous presence, one of the most powerful moves you can make is to disappear strategically. This Stoic-inspired habit recognizes that absence can create more impact than presence, that scarcity increases value, and that people often appreciate what they have only when it's no longer readily available. Think about the dynamics of any relationship where one person is always available, always responsive, always accommodating. What happens to the perceived value of that person? It drops. Not because they're less valuable inherently, but because human psychology assigns higher value to things that are scarce and harder to obtain. The Stoics understood the principle of voluntary discomfort and temporary withdrawal from society to gain perspective and strength. Seneca regularly practiced living with minimal resources for days at a time to remember that he could survive without luxury. Marcus Aurelius would retreat from public life when possible to reconnect with his philosophical practice and inner world. Strategic disappearance means periodically withdrawing your availability, attention, and energy from people and situations. It's not about playing games or manipulating others. It's about recognizing that constant availability diminishes your power and prevents both you and others from developing healthy independence. When you're always available to someone, they stop questioning whether they should reach out to you. They take your presence for granted. They make demands on your time and energy without consideration because they've learned that you'll always be there. You become convenient rather than valued. Strategic disappearance reverses this dynamic. When you occasionally withdraw your presence, people start to wonder. They question whether they've taken you for granted. They appreciate the value you bring more acutely because they've experienced your absence. They become more intentional about their interactions with you because they recognize you're not a guaranteed resource. This applies to professional relationships, friendships, and romantic partnerships. The person who's always chasing, always available, always accommodating, rarely commands respect. The person who has a full life, clear boundaries, and the willingness to prioritize their own needs naturally commands more respect and attraction. Practically, this means not being constantly available through texts, calls, and social media. It means sometimes declining invitations even when you could attend. It means creating space in your schedule for yourself rather than filling every moment with other people's needs. It means occasionally stepping back from relationships or situations to gain perspective and allow others to experience what it's like without your presence. The key is that this withdrawal must be authentic. You're not pretending to be busy or playing hard to get. You're genuinely investing in your own life, pursuing your own goals, cultivating your own inner world. The disappearance is real because you're actually doing things that matter to you. When you reappear after these strategic absences, you'll notice a shift. People are more enthusiastic to see you. They're more curious about what you've been doing. They're more respectful of your time because they've been reminded that it's limited. Your power has multiplied through your absence. Remember, this isn't about being manipulative or cold. It's about recognizing that healthy relationships require space, that you teach people how to treat you through your availability, and that absence can make the heart grow fonder while also making the respect grow deeper. Habit 8. Respond to disrespect with indifference. One of the most common mistakes people make when facing disrespect is responding with emotion, defensiveness, or retaliation. These reactions might feel satisfying in the moment, but they actually hand power directly to the person disrespecting you. They demonstrate that their words or actions have successfully disturbed your peace, which is exactly what they were designed to do. Epictetus taught a profound lesson about insults and disrespect. He said that when someone treats you poorly or speaks badly of you, remember that they do it believing they're right to do so. It's impossible for people to pursue what seems wrong to them. They pursue what seems good. So when someone disrespects you, they're revealing their own limited understanding, not any truth about your worth. The Stoic response to disrespect is not anger, not retaliation, not explanation, but indifference. Not fake indifference where you're seething inside while pretending not to care. Genuine indifference that comes from truly recognizing that someone else's opinion, especially when expressed through disrespect, has no bearing on your actual value. Think about it logically. Does a person's disrespect actually change anything about who you are, what you're capable of, or what you're worth? Of course not. Their disrespect is simply information about them, their insecurities, their pain, their lack of wisdom or maturity. It's not information about you. When you respond to disrespect with indifference, you accomplish several powerful things. First, you refuse to reward the disrespectful behavior with the reaction it was seeking. Most disrespect is an attempt to provoke a reaction, to pull you down to the level of the person disrespecting you, to disturb your peace. By remaining unmoved, you deny them that satisfaction. Second, you maintain your dignity and composure, which elevates you in the eyes of everyone watching. Observers don't respect the person hurling insults or acting disrespectfully. They respect the person who remains calm, composed, and unbothered in the face of that behavior. Third, you preserve your energy for things that actually matter. Every moment you spend being upset about disrespect, defending yourself, or planning retaliation is energy you're not investing in your goals, your growth, or your peace. That person has successfully hijacked your attention and emotional resources. True power means reclaiming that attention and investing it where it serves you. Indifference doesn't mean you allow ongoing disrespect without boundaries. If someone is consistently disrespectful, the Stoic response isn't to tolerate it indefinitely, but to remove them from your life without drama or emotion. You don't need to explain, defend, or justify. You simply withdraw your energy and presence from that person. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This wisdom captures the essence of responding to disrespect with indifference. You don't lower yourself to the level of the person disrespecting you. You don't become what you're fighting against. You remain centered in your own values and character. Practice this habit starting now. The next time someone disrespects you, take a breath and choose indifference. Don't defend yourself, don't explain, don't retaliate. Simply acknowledge their perspective without accepting it as truth and move on. With your day, notice how this preserves your peace and actually diminishes the person's power over you. Over time, this habit transforms not just individual interactions, but your entire relationship with criticism and negativity. You become genuinely unbothered because you've internalized the truth that others' opinions don't define you. This unshakable self-possession is the ultimate expression of personal power. Habit 9. Build your life, not your image. In the age of social media and personal branding, there's unprecedented pressure to cultivate an image, to present a curated version of yourself for public consumption. Countless hours and enormous energy are spent crafting the perfect posts, the ideal narrative, the most impressive highlight reel of life. The Stoics would view this obsession with image building as a profound misuse of time and a fundamental misunderstanding of what matters. Seneca wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." He also lamented how people waste their lives pursuing the wrong things, particularly the approval and admiration of others. The Stoic priority is always substance over appearance, character over reputation, genuine achievement over perceived success. They understood that a life spent building an image is a life not fully lived. You're performing rather than experiencing, curating rather than creating, seeking validation rather than growth. Think about the trap of image building. When your focus is on how things appear to others, you make decisions based on external approval rather than internal alignment. You pursue achievements that look impressive rather than endeavors that fulfill you. You maintain relationships that enhance your image rather than connections that nourish your soul. You're essentially living someone else's values while neglecting your own. The alternative is to focus relentlessly on building your actual life, developing real skills, pursuing genuine passions, cultivating authentic relationships, strengthening your character, expanding your capabilities. These are things that have intrinsic value regardless of whether anyone ever sees or acknowledges them. When you build your life rather than your image, you develop real confidence based on genuine competence. You know what you're capable of because you've proven it to yourself through action, not through likes and comments. You develop self-respect that comes from living according to your values, not from others' validation. This doesn't mean you can't share aspects of your life or that there's anything wrong with having a public presence. It means your primary motivation is the substance, not the appearance. You're sharing what's real, not curating what looks good. You're documenting your journey, not performing for an audience. Marcus Aurelius was literally the most powerful person in the world during his time as Roman emperor, yet his meditations reveal a man completely unconcerned with his image or legacy. He was writing for himself, examining his own character, striving to be better. He was building his life, his wisdom, his virtue, not his image. The freedom that comes from releasing concern about your image is extraordinary. You stop making decisions based on how they'll look to others. You stop seeking permission or approval. You stop comparing yourself to curated highlight reels. You start living according to your own standards and values. This habit also protects you from the devastating crash that happens when an image-based life inevitably falls apart. If your sense of self-worth is built on others' perceptions, what happens when those perceptions change? When the likes decrease? When the attention moves elsewhere? You're left with nothing because you've built nothing real. But when you've spent your time building your actual life, developing real capabilities, nurturing genuine relationships, and strengthening your character, external changes in perception don't shake your foundation. You know who you are and what you're worth, regardless of others' opinions. Start today. Evaluate where you're investing your energy. Are you building your life or your image? Are you developing substance or crafting appearance? Are you seeking genuine growth or external validation? Redirect your energy to what actually matters. Build the life and let the image take care of itself or not. Either way, you'll have something real. Habit 10. Practice the art of non-explanation. One of the most draining habits many people have is the compulsion to explain everything. Why you made that decision, why you feel that way, why you believe what you believe, why you're doing what you're doing. This constant explaining erodes your power and positions you as someone seeking approval rather than operating from personal authority. The Stoics understood that a person of true character and conviction doesn't need to constantly explain themselves. Their actions speak. Their results speak. Their character speaks. Words become necessary only when communicating with those who've earned access to your thinking through mutual respect and genuine relationship. Think about political leaders, CEOs, or other figures in positions of authority. The ones who command respect don't feel compelled to explain every decision to everyone. They make decisions based on their judgment and values, communicate what's necessary, and move forward. They understand that constant explanation suggests uncertainty and invites unnecessary input. Contrast this with the person who over-explains everything. When they make a choice, they launch into a lengthy justification of all the factors they considered. When someone questions them, they become defensive and try to convince the other person they're right. When they set a boundary, they apologize profusely and explain all the reasons why they must set it. This pattern communicates weakness rather than strength, uncertainty rather than conviction. It invites challenge because you're essentially announcing that your decisions are up for debate and that you need others to validate your choices. The practice of non-explanation doesn't mean you're secretive or unwilling to communicate. It means you're selective about what you explain and to whom. Close friends and trusted advisors might get insight into your thinking because you value their perspective and they've earned that access through the relationship. Random acquaintances, critics, or people who've demonstrated they don't have your best interests at heart. They get only the information necessary, if any. Practically, this means when you make a decision, you state it clearly without justification, unless justification is requested by someone whose opinion you value. I've decided to change careers. Period. Not a 15-minute explanation of every factor that led to the decision. When you set a boundary, you state it without apology or excessive explanation. I'm not available that day. Not I'm so sorry, it's just that I have this thing and I really wish I could, but I've been so busy and I hope you understand, and maybe we can do it another time. When someone disagrees with your choice, you acknowledge their perspective without feeling compelled to defend yours. I can see why you'd think that. I've decided differently. Not a debate where you try to convince them you're right. This habit is deeply connected to self-trust. When you trust your own judgment, you don't need others to validate your decisions through understanding. You've considered what matters to you, you've made your choice, and that's sufficient. Others can agree or disagree, and either way, you're moving forward. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't care what others think of us because their thoughts can't actually harm us. Only our own judgments about ourselves matter. When you internalize this wisdom, the compulsion to explain evaporates. You know your reasons. You trust your judgment. What others think becomes genuinely irrelevant. Practice non-explanation starting today. Notice your impulse to justify and explain. Before you launch into an explanation, ask yourself, does this person need this information? Have they earned access to my thinking? Am I seeking validation or providing necessary information? More often than not, you'll realize the explanation isn't necessary. As you practice this habit, you'll notice people respecting you more. They'll stop questioning your decisions because you've communicated through your silence that your choices aren't up for discussion. Your power multiplies when you stop giving it away through unnecessary explanation. Habit 11. Develop strategic patience. In a culture obsessed with instant gratification, immediate results, and constant action, the Stoic virtue of patience might seem like a liability. But the ancient philosophers understood something modern people often forget. Timing is everything. Acting too quickly can be just as destructive as not acting at all. The person who has mastered strategic patience possesses a significant advantage over those driven by impulsiveness. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself not to act rashly, to give situations time to develop, to allow his understanding to deepen before responding. He knew that as emperor, hasty decisions could have catastrophic consequences, but the principle applies equally to our daily lives. How often have you acted impulsively and regretted it? How many situations would have resolved themselves if you'd simply waited? Strategic patience is not passivity. It's not avoiding action out of fear or indecision. It's the conscious choice to allow situations to develop, to gather more information, to wait for the optimal moment to act. It's having the discipline to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, and the urge to do something without immediately acting on that urge. Think about negotiations, whether in business or personal relationships. The person who can afford to wait almost always has the advantage over the person who needs immediate resolution. Your patience signals that you're not desperate, that you have options, that you can tolerate uncertainty. This positions you as the more powerful party. The same principle applies to conflicts. When someone provokes you, your immediate impulse might be to respond with equal aggression. But strategic patience says, wait, see what happens. Often the person who provokes you is looking for a reaction, and by withholding that reaction, you deny them what they seek. The situation often diffuses simply through your patience. In pursuing goals, strategic patience means understanding that meaningful achievement takes time. The person trying to get rich quick usually ends up with nothing. The person committed to steadily building wealth over decades usually succeeds. The person looking for fast fitness results through extreme diets usually ends up right back where they started. The person committed to sustainable habits over years transforms their body permanently. Epictetus taught that we should demand immediate results from ourselves in terms of our intentions and efforts, but we must be patient with outcomes which are not entirely within our control. This wisdom prevents the anxiety and frustration that come from expecting immediate results in areas where timing matters. Cultivating strategic patience requires several practices. First, develop tolerance for discomfort and uncertainty. Most impulsive action comes from wanting to escape the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what will happen. By learning to sit with that discomfort without reacting, you gain the ability to wait for clarity. Second, practice delayed gratification regularly. Choose to wait for things you could have immediately. This builds the psychological muscle of patience that you can deploy in more significant situations. Third, before taking any significant action, give yourself a mandatory waiting period. If you want to respond to that provocative email, wait 24 hours. If you want to make that major purchase, wait a week. If you want to end that relationship, wait a month. You can always act later if it still seems right, but you can't unact once you've moved impulsively. Fourth, trust the timing of your life. The Stoics believed in a rational universe where events unfold according to nature's logic, not our preferred timeline. Sometimes delays that frustrate us are actually protecting us from outcomes that would have been worse. Sometimes the timing that seems wrong is actually perfect. As you develop strategic patience, you'll notice profound changes in your life. You'll make fewer decisions you regret. You'll handle conflicts more effectively. You'll achieve more because you're working with reality's timeline rather than fighting against it. You'll command more respect because people recognize that you're not reactive or impulsive, but measured and intentional. In a world of impulsive actors, the patient strategist stands out. In a culture of immediate gratification, the person who can wait holds tremendous power. Develop this habit and watch your effectiveness and influence multiply. Habit 12. Master the exit. The final habit for reclaiming your power in silence might be the most important, knowing when and how to exit situations, relationships, and conversations that don't serve you. Most people lack this skill entirely. They stay in conversations long after the exchange has become unproductive. They maintain relationships long after they've become toxic. They remain in situations long after it's clear they need to move on. The Stoics understood that life is short and that one of the most important skills is discerning what deserves our time and energy and what doesn't. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This memento mori practice wasn't morbid, but practical. It reminds us that we don't have time to waste on things that don't matter. Mastering the exit means developing the wisdom to recognize when something has run its course and the courage to move on without guilt, without drama, and without apology. It means valuing your time and energy so highly that you refuse to squander them on dead-end situations. In conversations, this means recognizing when an exchange has become circular or unproductive and having the social skill to exit gracefully. You don't need to announce, "This conversation is going nowhere." You simply find a natural exit. "I need to get going. Take care." No explanation, no justification, just a clean exit. In relationships, whether professional or personal, mastering the exit means recognizing the signs that a connection has become more costly than beneficial and having the strength to create distance or end it entirely. This is often challenging because of history, guilt, or fear of conflict. But the Stoic asks, is this relationship helping me become a better person? If not, why am I maintaining it? The key is that your exits must be clean. No dramatic announcements, no burning bridges, no lengthy explanations of why you're leaving. You simply create distance quietly and redirect your energy to more worthy pursuits. If an explanation becomes necessary, keep it brief and non-accusatory. "I've realized this isn't working for me anymore. I wish you well." In situations you've outgrown, whether a job, a city, or a lifestyle, mastering the exit means recognizing when you've extracted all the growth available and it's time to move on. Too many people stay in situations they've outgrown out of fear, comfort, or misplaced loyalty. They sacrifice years of potential growth because they can't master the exit. Seneca wrote extensively about the art of living well by knowing when to withdraw from various aspects of life. He understood that clinging to what should be released is a form of suffering. The person who can let go cleanly and move on decisively possesses a freedom that others envy. This habit requires both wisdom and courage. Wisdom to discern what's worth keeping and what needs to be released. Courage to act on that discernment despite fear, guilt, or social pressure. But when you develop this habit, you gain something invaluable, the ability to curate your life intentionally rather than defaulting to wherever momentum carries you. Start practicing this habit in small ways. Exit conversations that have become unproductive. Distance yourself from people who drain your energy. Leave gatherings when you're ready rather than staying out of obligation. Each small exit builds the muscle for larger ones. As you master the exit, you'll notice your life becoming increasingly aligned with your values and goals. You're no longer tolerating situations that don't serve you. You're not maintaining relationships out of obligation. You're not staying where you've outgrown. You're continuously curating a life that reflects who you're becoming rather than who you were. The ultimate power is the ability to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your highest good. Master the exit, and you master your life. Conclusion: the silent revolution. We've journeyed through 12 transformative Stoic habits that teach you how to reclaim your power in silence and command respect without saying a word. These aren't just philosophical concepts to contemplate. They're practical tools to implement immediately in every area of your life. Master the pause before you respond, and you'll gain control over your reactions. Refuse to justify your decisions to those who don't matter, and you'll stop draining your power through unnecessary explanations. Let your actions speak louder than your words, and you'll build genuine respect through results rather than promises. Observe more and react less, and you'll develop an inner stability that others can feel. Embrace selective communication, and your words will carry more weight. Cultivate an unshakable inner world, and external chaos will no longer disturb your peace. Disappear strategically, and people will value your presence more. Respond to disrespect with indifference, and you'll preserve your energy for what matters. Build your life rather than your image, and you'll develop real confidence based on genuine substance. Practice non-explanation, and you'll command authority through your conviction. Develop strategic patience, and you'll gain advantage over impulsive actors. Master the exit, and you'll curate a life aligned with your highest values. The common thread through all these habits is the recognition that true power doesn't come from controlling others, from being the loudest voice, or from constantly asserting yourself. True power comes from mastering yourself, from choosing your responses consciously, from knowing when to speak and when silence is more powerful. The ancient Stoics faced challenges we can scarcely imagine: war, slavery, political persecution, personal tragedy. Yet they developed philosophies and practices that not only helped them survive, but thrive with dignity, wisdom, and inner peace. These same practices are available to you right now. The question is, will you implement them? Will you commit to this silent revolution in how you show up in the world? Or will you continue the exhausting pattern of over-explaining, overreacting, and giving your power away to anyone who provokes you? You have within you right now everything you need to command respect, to influence without manipulation, and to build a life of genuine power and peace. It starts with silence. Not the silence of having nothing to say, but the powerful silence of someone who has mastered themselves and chooses carefully when and how to speak. Starting today, implement one of these habits. Tomorrow, add another. Within weeks, you'll notice profound shifts in how people treat you and how you experience your own life. Within months, you'll have transformed into someone who naturally commands respect, who influences through presence rather than persuasion, who operates from genuine power rather than desperate assertion. The journey begins with a single choice, the choice to reclaim your power through silence. Make that choice now. The ancient philosophers are waiting to see what you'll do with their wisdom. Show them, show yourself. Begin your silent revolution today. Thank you for taking this journey with me through these powerful Stoic principles. If this content has resonated with you, if you felt the potential for transformation in these practices, I ask that you share your commitment in the comments. Let me know which habit you're implementing first, and as your keyword to show you've watched until the end, write in the comments, "I command respect through silence." Your transformation starts now. May you walk through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth, the calm presence of someone who has mastered themselves, and the unmistakable power of someone who has reclaimed their authority through silence.